I do agree with his assessment. This is exactly what I was saying yesterday, is they've done a good job of attracting and acquiring a lot of talent. The teams that are good and have drafted well, pay the guys you got. If you're out in this free agent frenzy paying big bucks for players, that suggests that you haven't done as good a job. And they can't spend a lot of money on these players because they do have a lot of good players that they need to pay, and they can't tie up their money in free agents.
Understood, which brings me to a couple of questions. The first one, Dan, is for you. There is a perception out there, and I think I am one of the people who hold it, but I will defer to your expertise. Is the Dak Prescott contract looming over them, hamstringing what the Cowboys are able to do?
Look, if you have a $59.5 million cap charge assigned to one player, it has to, right? Like, you're working around that no matter what. The Cowboys would tell you, well, he's the quarterback, right? Like, if you're going to lay it out. So they either have to extend him or get comfortable with the idea of working around that number. And so far, they haven't been able to extend him, and we'll see what happens there. But I think it would be foolish to say that that's not a factor. I mean, you know, they have a budget assigned for free agency that might conceivably be larger if their quarterback's cap hit weren't the highest in the league.
I think it's a factor, but we have to acknowledge that we all warned them about this years ago when they were franchising Dak and messing around with his contract. I think this is mismanagement, honestly, how they ended up in a situation when you had a quarterback that you knew was going to be here for a long time. You sign him to a deal as early as you possibly can. You don't get in a situation where he has all the leverage.
I think that when you look at Patrick Mahomes, he set the model, right? Give him a 10-year contract that's really a dummy contract that you can always prorate, steal money, give him signing bonuses, things of that sort, if he was going to be your guy. But I do agree with Dominique that I think, you know, I think they're doing a good job. I think they're staying patient. I think this is all in. Whenever you got to pay your quarterback maybe $55 to $60 million, you look at Brian Burns' deal, well, Michael Parsons is going to say, I'm better than that guy.
Right.
So that's going to be plus $30 million a year, right? Mm-hmm. And then you look at CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb is waiting for Justin Jefferson to get paid because he wants to go afterwards so he can top the number. That's going to be $28 million a year.
Right.
How much money do you really have?
No, I understand that. But another way of saying what you just said, Bart, is they're just basically going to have the same players. They're just going to be paying them a lot more than they have been previously.
Exactly.
And as a consequence, they're going to lose a bunch of other ones. So someone explain to me how they get better.
You have to graduate. You have to develop players within your system. I think, you know, being able to go get Kendricks. Listen, I've always been a fan of his. For people who really don't know who he is and what he did in Minnesota, he was a Pro Bowler. He's a guy that understands. He's just as good or better than Van Der Esch. He's going to shore that linebacker position up. He's going to make sure that he mans the middle. Now they just have to figure out the running back situation, which everybody here has told us is easy to fill through college or through free agency.
The way you get better is the way that they've stayed good this entire time is you draft well.
Right.
We keep talking about getting cheap talent. Quarterbacks on rookie deals are not the only ones that matter on rookie deals. They've had Micah Parsons and CeeDee Lamb on rookie deals up until this point. Mm-hmm. They try to spend money to build around them. They can go out and get Gilmore. They can go out and get Cooks. They can go out and get – so that's how it's going to work. They're going to have to pay the guys that they have, but they're going to have to hit in the draft, and they've been doing it. So, like, we have to trust the process that they've been using up until now.
The draft in a salary cap league is about getting value in the first 4 or 5 years of a player's career, getting high-end production for low-end prices, and they've excelled at that. They've won 12 games 3 years in a row. They're doing something right.
When you win 12 games, you don't have a lot of improvement to do. You just need to get somebody to get you over the top. When you talk about all in, who knows? Somebody's going to fall through the cracks, right? You look at still good free agents there. Somebody's going to sign a one-year deal. Prove it deal, try and get back right, and they'll be able to pounce.
And there's a draft.
Right, there are 3 different ways you acquire players, right? Free agency, trades, and the draft. Right. The draft is, to your point,
and last year,
the most efficient one.
Yeah, last year they waited out free agency. They trade for Brandon Cooks. They trade for Stephon Gilmore, low prices. I mean, those were good deals.
And maybe they'll work out. Yes, look, no one can argue that they haven't been successful. The problem is that during this period of time where they've had all these players on these young deals, they've won a combined total of 1 playoff game, and that sort of has become the measurement, right? When you keep winning 12 games,
I don't think you fix that in
fine.
March.
Yeah, that's fine. But that's what I'm saying. The reason why they haven't gone deep into the playoffs is not because they haven't gotten a major free agent. You're not going to solve that now. We can point to a lot of different things, but it's not because they haven't gone to made a big splash in free agency.
Maybe, maybe not. Like a lot of us thought that Derrick Henry would have fit very nicely. It would have looked really good with that star on his helmet. Well, I'll tell you what. Derrick Henry wanted to be a Cowboy, and as you heard him say on the radio yesterday, that interest was not returned.
Did Dallas pick up the phone? Were they involved in the Derrick Henry sweepstakes?
Not at all. I don't really know what's going on over there, but the Cowboys never called at all.
Now, were they on your radar? Did that surprise you?
I mean, of course, because that's where I stay in the off season. That's a great organization and been a great opportunity. But I'm thankful that I ended up here in Baltimore.
All right, that's with my guy, Adam.
He looks better in purple anyway.
Yeah, so first of all, make sure we give the credit. That's our buddy Adam Shine there from Mad Dog Sports Radio with a good interview. That's Derrick Henry saying, Dallas is where I live, Dallas is where I wanted to be, and they didn't even call me.
But I don't know how much money I got, right? I still got to handle the Dak Prescott, so I can't be going to get a luxury piece. Yes, he's a guy that you would love to have, but at $8 million, that's maybe more than what they had slated for the running back position. And Derrick Henry is a guy, they've experienced a guy, that's had a lot of wear and tear on their body and came in and listen.
Can he do that? Everyone they have, can they do that?
Or he can get hurt.
But Derrick Henry's never going to get hurt. He's bionic. He's not even a human being.
People say that about Eddie George and Brandon Jacobs, but how did that end?
This is Dominique's least favorite delivery.
I know.
First of all, I would have filed charges if I was guys. First of all, if I was his kid, I wouldn't take the trash out of nothing. Man, I see a grown man do like that, Dad. You can't chastise me. If I go tell Derrick Henry to come throw your ass.
Let's go back to the book. Go ahead.
The Cowboys got outbid by the Bengals for Zach Moss?
Yes.
$4 million a year. All right, they weren't going to $4 million a year. Derrick Henry got $8 million from the Ravens. If the Cowboys had called Derrick Henry, it would have been a short conversation because they would have said, "Hey, we got $3.5 million a year. What do you think?" And he would have laughed, and he would have taken the Ravens call and signed with them anyway.
Overreaction Friday. Let's go through some things I think people are saying. Graziano, if people are saying Kirk Cousins makes the Falcons Super Bowl contenders, is that an overreaction?
Yes, like almost everything else people say the third week of March, right after free agency happens. Look, I think he'll make them better. They had terrible quarterback play last year, and at some point they may get there, but there's a lot of new there in Atlanta, a lot of stuff that has to be, learned. He's got to learn his receiver. Yeah, I think they'll be good, but I think it's early to call them a Super Bowl contender.
Okay, but by early you mean like 10 minutes from now on a green list when I'm going to say they're a Super Bowl contender. So we'll get to that in a minute. Meanwhile, next, if I were to say the Giants need to trade up for a quarterback in the first round, is that an overreaction?
It's not an overreaction. I think it should be on their minds. The Giants, I think, are looking at likely moving on from Daniel Jones after this season, and he's coming off of an injury. If you're the Giants and you have the opportunity to get a guy you think is a long-term franchise quarterback, you're picking at 6 and you can move up from there to get him, I think you have to take advantage of that opportunity.
All right, and there were some extenuating circumstances there as well we'll talk about. But let's then go to the pressure point. If I said the Bears should keep Justin Fields and draft Caleb Williams, is that an overreaction?
Yes, I think we expect the Bears to draft Caleb Williams at number 1 at this point. If they do that, I don't think they can keep them both on the roster through the offseason. I think that creates a very difficult and uncomfortable situation for both players, for your coaching staff. I think it's something. The Bears have been out there trying to trade Justin Fields in anticipation of taking a quarterback number 1. I think that's ultimately where this lands. When it happens, I can't say. But if they're on the roster together through the offseason, I think that becomes a very difficult situation.
Well, right now it feels like the biggest question in the entire NFL is what are they going to do? And so we went in search of answers by calling up our dear friend Courtney Cronin, our Bears reporter extraordinaire, who is working on a story right now about exactly this, about exactly where the Bears find themselves, which you were telling us this morning in the meeting, Courtney, is not where they expect it to be by this point. So catch everyone up. How did we get to where we are, and what can the Bears do from here?
Well, simply put, Greeny, we got to this point because the quarterback market played out in a way that left Justin Fields as the odd man out for now. No team traded for him at the Bears' asking price, and it doesn't feel like Chicago's necessarily in a rush to get him off the roster at this point. But as we get closer to the draft, deadlines typically speed up the action, and that could very well be what happens for Justin Fields as the Bears try to find him a new home. I know that everybody goes back to the Combine and focuses on what Ryan Poles said, that he wants to do right by Justin Fields. And ideally, if a trade were to have happened, it would have happened before free agency. But there's another part of it that I think kind of got lost in the mix that Ryan Poles himself mentioned that you have to anticipate that sometimes there are unforeseen things that pop up that you have to navigate. The market for Justin Fields and how dry the trade market is right now is one of those things. And as I've done reporting on this story I'm working on for ESPN.com about how the Bears can realistically navigate this, if Justin Fields is still on the roster in a couple of weeks, and if the team drafts Caleb Williams, how long can those two coexist? Is it likely that the two of them would get on the practice field at any point? And most sources I've spoken with gave me the indication that they believe that somebody in the draft will not get the quarterback that they want, and that could be the best time for Ryan Poles to strike and to get closer to the draft compensation that he originally had sought after for Justin Fields.
So, look, I mean, there are 6 quarterbacks that we expect to go certainly by the end of round 2, and maybe sooner than that in the draft. That's a lot of teams that will be able to fill that hole through that mechanism, and so it could leave the Bears in the odd place out. Courtney, stay with us if you will, because I need you to continue in here. But I want to ask my players for a minute here. So let's live in a world where they want to maximize the value of this asset. I mean, Justin Fields has value. To trade him for what the Patriots got for Mac Jones, I think would be, to me, I think that would be greatly undervaluing what he is. So let's live in a world where those two guys are on the roster. How bad is that?
I don't know how bad it is. And I think a lot of people are saying that it can be done. But I don't think it matters that it can be done. I think you have, as Ryan Poles has done a really good job up until this point, but you have one responsibility when you have the #1 pick overall and a potential franchise quarterback. Every decision that he makes from now on should be about, is this going to help Caleb Williams become as good as he can become? If the answer is, I don't know, then you got to move on. If the answer is no, then you got to move on. I don't understand how keeping Justin Fields makes Caleb Williams better. And so in that case, I understand that as a GM, you want to get as much value as you deserve for all your assets. But sometimes you got to lose the trade because you have the bigger picture in mind. So I think Courtney's obviously right. Wait till the draft plays out, and maybe you'll find a real thirsty team, and you can get that second-round pick. But if you can't by then, you got to move them for a 6th, a 5th, a 7th, whatever it takes. You got to get them out of there.
They jobbed the Panthers. They got a plethora of picks in the future. Like, who cares, man, about the pick? Do right by the kid. And at this point, you have to really bring him in and talk to him and talk to his representation and say, hey, it's 2 ways this can go. How would you feel in a scenario where we make you the starter and we bring Caleb on slowly, gives you opportunity to show what you can do if you have weapons and you're in a great environment, could boost your value later, and we'll try and do right by you, or we'll let you go, and where can we go, and we'll come off of the second-round pick. It depends on the kid.
But that first way is a problem. Because if you play him, you want him to play well so that you can move him on.
Right.
But let's say he plays well, and then you go to Caleb. Then Caleb, if Caleb doesn't blow everything out of the water, everyone's gonna be like, hey, maybe you should stick with Justin Fields.
But we saw this. But we saw this with Kurt Warner and Eli Manning.
Right.
And we thought Kurt Warner was done, but Kurt went to Arizona and balled out. And they had a winning record when they moved on for that. They understand what the assignment is.
The Giants, Kurt Warner didn't win games that year, right? Like that when they made the switch from Warner to Eli, their record wasn't good. That's the trick, right? If the Bears are anticipating winning this year, which I think with their roster, they ended up winning, 7 last year. They think they can improve on that.
Right.
So if you're winning with Justin Fields in this imaginary scenario that I 100% do not believe will happen, then it would be very difficult to make that move.